Namastu, which means I bow to the divinity in you. My name is Pastor Dr. Cleveland W. Enius III, also known as Ka-Hun, Anku, and it's always a pleasure to be here with you. We're having another True Light Fellowship scriptural study, and we're going to be discussing a reality that is ever present, but I don't think we discuss it enough. And there's a lot been going on here in the Bahamas surrounding the church and surrounding just the realities of how the church has been functioning and how it has been allowed to either meet or not meet. We know that we're still in our lockdown for COVID-19, the pandemic, and I want to just take this time to share a word with those who care. And so today's scriptural study is all about how we as the church will be able to change the world. We will never change the world by going to church. We will only change the world by being the church. So we must be the church in order to make the changes that we want to see in today's society. So this is important, and I wanted to start here because ultimately it's not me speaking personally. As Ka-Hun Anku Sarah, I'm just simply sharing the scriptures. And so for those who may not be in the Bahamas, I'm going to try to keep it as general as possible because you wouldn't be familiar with exactly what's going on. But we have a lot of situations going on where, you know, they say pastors are seemingly debating each other, which, you know, I'm happy to see the way that some pastors have dealt with it to kind of quell the reality of what's going on. And we also have situations where, you know, the the church as we know it is frustrated insofar as not being able to actually have the regular meetings that the church would have on a Sunday. And so there's some back and forth, or I wouldn't say back and forth, but there's been messages sent to the prime minister about opening up the churches, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not focusing on that, but I just kind of want to let those people in the Bahamas understand kind of where I'm coming from personally as far as how what inspired this particular scriptural study. And so we're going to start in the book of Jeremiah 23, because if we as the church, as it's mentioned, we want to be clear about what we understand the church to mean as true Christians. All right, because we as true Christians, we recognize that the real and living Messiah, Yahshua Christ, the real Kanisa, has been hijacked. And what do we mean by that? Before we go to Jeremiah 23, I want to jump into John 16. John 16, so that we can begin to appreciate the context of what it is we're sharing today. All right. And so John 16, and we're going to be sharing from the Blue Letter Bible. So again, we are a teaching church, so we encourage you to get your Bibles, get your notepads, take some notes, because this is very important for us to delve into together and for you to come out of this scriptural study with something that you can share with those, again, who care. So John 16, it says, "These things have I spoken unto you, that ye should not be offended." All right. So this is important. Let's make sure we put in the red letter edition so we can see that this is the red words of Yahshua Christ. who they falsely call Jesus Christ. These things have I spoken unto you that ye should not be offended. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is not to offend anybody. This is not anything that we are, we don't glean off of offending anybody. However, the truth may be an offense, but it's not a sin. Okay? Because if we don't speak the truth, we're never going to see the changes that we say we want to see. So these things I have spoken unto you that ye should not be offended. It says, they shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think he doeth God service. There's going to come a time, which is this day and time now, where an establishment of the church as we know it today will be coming out of a hijacked movement or a repackaged movement of the church cult of Caesar, whereby many today, including the pastors, I'm going to talk to the pastors for those, again, who care, all right, as well as those who may not be pastors, but just follow the scriptures. So you maybe could share it with your pastor, right? We have not been following, number one, the original books of the Bible. We've not been following the original example of the real and living Messiah. And because of this, we've been destroyed. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the synagogue or the hekul or the kanisa, as it's originally called, we've been moved out of that. We've been placed inside of the Greco-Roman renditions, especially here in the Western world, of our original true religious identity of atonism or true Christianity. And so this is something that was prophesied by the real and living Messiah, Yahshua Christ. And so there are people who will kill your reputation. There are people who will try to destroy the works of the Kanisa or of the forces of liberation. And they'll be thinking that they're doing God a service. They'll be thinking that they're working for a righteous cause, when in reality, their whole purpose and intent behind doing what they're doing has been hijacked. All right? So that's where we're starting today. And so that being said, right, you do want to now go to Jeremiah 23, because again, Jeremiah is making a plea to the pastors of his day and time. All right? And this is important, again, because it's right here in the Bible that people say that they follow. And we need to be aware that everybody who's calling themselves a pastor is not necessarily a pastor that has been rightly guided. And let me be clear. There are many pastors who are sincere and who feel as if what they're teaching is indeed the word of the Most High Heavenly One. However, they've not been properly taught. All right? And not being properly taught means that you're leading people astray, whether you are intending to do it or not. But this was happening a very long time ago. We see it in Jeremiah 23. It says, woe be unto the pastors who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, said the Lord. So the pastors, not the drug dealer, not the stripper, not the government, not the people who we like to point our fingers at. That's not who's being warned. Who's being warned is the pastors. Jeremiah 23. It says, woe be unto the pastors that destroy. This word destroy, and the language is key. So we have to look into the Strong's Concordance that's being made available to us to be able to see a perspective that we don't see inside the English, abad. And it means to perish, to vanish, to go astray. Our people have been led astray. You want to know why we are the way that we are in this country today and around the world as a people, whereby we are scattered. We have individual success, but we do not have collective success. We have people with very nice houses in a neighborhood, but we don't have community. We have neighbors, but we don't have common unity. So we have gone astray, and that has caused us now to be the ones who are being exterminated. We're being hunted around the planet. And every time one of us is hunted, we have a candlelight vigil and we go on the media and we talk about how bad it is and how things need to change, but it's not changing. Yes, we're being destroyed. There's a force out here that understands who we are, but we don't understand who we are. This word destroy, properly to wander away, to lose oneself. You want to understand what is going on with us as a people? We've lost ourselves. And the pastors are responsible for this in large part because we honestly feel as if we've been taught the realities of the Bible as it is held today. We think we're holding the original books of the Bible, or we think that it's just a difference between Hebrew and the English is not that big a difference, or Hebrew and the Greek, or Hebrew and the Latin, or English and the Arabic. English and any of the languages that came before it, it's not really a major difference. But that's not what we're saying. To lose yourself means that you don't know who you are. And so if you tell people that all they have to do is take this leap of faith and they just have to find Jesus Christ by saying a prayer and forget their culture and forget their heritage and forget their race and forget their spirituality and forget their tribes and forget all of the things that make them who they are, then you're responsible for destroying the people. But we understand that's what you were taught. You're only teaching what you were taught. So it says, woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture. Right? The sheep are scattered. The word scatter, the word puts, to scatter, to be dispersed. Not just even as a people, but in our efforts. We don't come together and actually build together collectively. We're scattered. Everybody is saying, as long as I get in heaven, I ain't worrying about the next person. You got people who leave their children and go to church by themselves and say, well, y'all got to figure it out for yourself. I got my Jesus. That's scattered energy. You understand? That's why we can't rule ourselves while the people who are ruling us are families. And these people don't go to church in many instances, or they go to keep appearances. So the sheep are being scattered. This is not talking to the goats. It's talking to the sheep. It's talking to those who are of the seed of the woman. Because sheep, ultimately, the female, they say, is the ewe. The male is the ram. And a lamb, they say, is under 1 year old. But when a female lamb, an ewe, is having baby lambs, they call it lambing. So this is in reference to the woman. This is in reference to the woman, this word sheep. And it's referencing the seed of the woman, the seed that comes out of the Nasarian, Asaru, and Aset, as mentioned in the book of Numbers, chapter 6. The sheep of my pasture. What is the pasture? Because we're supposed to be led to greener pastures. They say merith, pasturing, pasturage, shepherd, herding, a flock, a feeding, a pasturage. So we're supposed to be fed something. What are we supposed to be fed? We're supposed to be fed that which will make us a better people. We're supposed to be fed something that's going to assist us. And we're going to talk about why that's not happening in a second. Says the Lord, says the Adonai. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, against the pastors. This ain't talking against the drug dealers. This ain't talking against the strippers. This ain't talking against all of the people we like to point our finger at. This is talking to the pastors. Yes, woe. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, against the pastors that feed my people. What is this word feed? The word feed is the word ra'ah. Now, they will tell you in many instances that this word ra'ah means disagreeable. Or they'll say it's a pagan god, Ra. But that's not what it means here. It says to pasture, to tend, to graze, to feed, to shepherd, right? To feed of cows, of sheep. And then it pokes the idolater in there. Israel as a flock, right? It goes on to say, Ra'ah, pasturate, intransitively, to graze, generally to rule, by extension, to associate with as a friend, to break, companion, to keep company with, to devour, eat up, evil entreat, to feed, use as a friend, to make a friendship, to pastor. That's what we as pastors are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be feeding the flock, not our flock, the flock of the Most High Heavenly One. But how can you feed the people what you never got as a pastor? How can you tell people or teach people what you've never been taught? And that's the problem we have today. We don't have the original books of the Bible. We don't have the drive to learn geography and topography and archaeology and history and all of the things that go along with understanding the Bible. We're not doing that as pastors. And then if we are, we're not teaching it. I don't see it. You understand? Not on a regular basis. Huh? Therefore, thus said the Lord God of Israel against the pastors that feed my people. Ye have scattered my flock and have driven them away. You want to know why the people ain't coming to church? The pastors is what is being blamed here. And have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doing, saith the Lord. You want to blame the people for not coming to church? We need us to, as pastors, to figure out what to feed these people, what to teach them. Verse 3 of Jeremiah 23. And I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries whither I have driven them. Okay. And I will bring them again to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. So Yahshua talked about he had sheep of other folds in the book of John. Yes? These folds that we're being brought into means that we have to now know and understand who we are outside of just saying, well, I'm a Christian. What's your identity as a Christian? Nava, a fold, abode, a habitation, abode of shepherds, of flocks, a pasture, a meadow, a habitation. Yes? So this is a place specific to those of a particular land, or those of a particular culture, or those of a particular tribe. Your tribe, your culture, the reality of who and what you are, it matters. You can no longer just say, well, I'm just a Christian and that's that. No, that's not what this is saying. It's saying you're going to be brought to your fold. And then what's going to happen? We're going to be brought from the north to south, the east to west, the northeast to southeast, to southwest to northwest, the 8-pointed star. I will set up shepherds over them, which shall feed them. This is the problem. The people, we cannot be the church by just going to church. We have to become the church. But you can't become the church if you're not being fed what is necessary for you to become the church. You're not being fed the rites, the laws, the rituals, the things that Yahshua Christ came to teach. You want to follow Paul and then wonder why you're not getting the results that Yahshua got. Huh? We need shepherds. We need the pastors who understand where to lead a people, not just sit around and wait. The minute you start sitting around and waiting for someone to save you, you've gone from Praying, praying, to Prey, pray. You're just sitting ducks, sitting sheep. You're just sitting around and waiting for someone to come and save you, and you're being dependent. And that's why many of us are going to suffer moaning and gnashing of teeth. This is what it was talking about, because the 7 thunders are upon us. And we don't understand what that is because we haven't been fed properly. I will set up shepherds over them. Who will set up these shepherds? This is talking about the Atonai, the one who sits in the seat of Asaru, Gabriel. In this time, within the Holy Coptic Church, our Rev, Dr. A.J. Varma, there are shepherds being set up around the world to feed the sheep that are of the three groups of 12 royal tribes. Amun. It goes on to say, I will set up shepherds over them which shall feed them, and they shall fear no more. Stop being afraid. That's the first one of the first things that our Basesh said to us when this pandemic hit was fear nothing and fear no one. We don't have to be afraid of that which we understand. Don't be afraid. Learn what's going on. Out of this pandemic will come opportunities. As businesses shut down, it means that a need is not being met, which means if we come together and begin to work together, we can actually do what? We can meet a need, a demand. This is how Marcus Garvey did it in the 1920s. This is how Elijah Muhammad did it in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, moving up all the way until today with with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam. Yes. So if our pastors are not being fed, if they don't have access to the original books of the Bible, which we're going to talk about in a second, we're going to continue to be a people that are destroyed. Verse 5, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. In his days, Judah shall be saved. This is the remnant, the tribe of guidance, Ayuta, the African tribe of Ayuta. And Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name, whereby he shall be called the Lord our righteousness. The Lord our righteousness, they say, is the word Yehovah Sitkanu. Yehovah Sitkanu. And they say Jehovah is our righteousness, but we know that that word Jehovah is not there. A sacred name symbolically applied to Jerusalem and the Messiah. So this Jerusalem, this Messiah, that ultimately, as a people, we have to become aware of again, is not talking about the Middle East. It's not talking about this place that the Jebusite Jew has occupied now and has really been an invader in that land. Those are the synagogues of Satan, referenced in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. All right. And so I wanted to start out by giving a heads up to our pastors, because if we keep denying the original scriptures, if we keep denying the reality of what our people need to be fed, then I don't care how much church you think you want to have. We'll never make any changes. Well, I should say, y'all won't make the changes you want to make, because we're going to make changes, because we're going to become the church. That's why you couldn't close the Holy Coptic Church during the pandemic. You can't close us because we are the Kanisa. We are the example of the law. We are the example of the rites, of the rituals. You understand? We are living in the example of Asaru. We are living in the example of Ankh and Atun, Nefertiti, Aset, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Sarando Fox here in the Bahamas, as an example of those who've sacrificed themselves, and others. Amun? And so when we talk about what's wrong with the church, don't start by talking about the government, and don't start by talking about the criminals, and don't start by talking about sinners. We got to start, if we're going to become responsible as pastors, if we're going to be responsible as those who are going to be shepherds, we got to start with ourselves. Are we feeding the people what they're supposed to be fed? The answer is no. How do we know? Let's go to the book of Hosea 4 and 6. We just saw where Jeremiah was admonishing the pastors, because the pastors are not feeding the people correctly. The pastors are teaching the people a whitewashed version of what they should know. And because we are being taught as a people a whitewashed version of the original books of the Bible, we are a destroyed people. All right? You really want verse 6, but I'll start at verse 1 for clarity. It says, hear the word of the Lord. Hear the what? The word. In the beginning was the word. We got to get back to the word. We can't get caught up in our emotions and caught up in our feelings. Look at what the word is saying. Hear what the word of the Lord, the Atanai. Ye children of Israel. This is only talking to a specific group of people. The three groups of 12 royal tribes of Ishmael, Israel, and Midiani that comes out of Abraham and his three wives, Hagar, Sarah, and Keturah. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, Ishmael, Midiani, for the Lord hath a controversy within the inhabitants of the land. Isn't that what's going on now? Huh? Are we seeing a controversy? Everybody's now saying that there's an exposure. People are being exposed because of COVID-19. Child, the pandemic exposing everybody. That's what they're saying, right? The word controversy, strife, dispute. Look what the word controversy is. Rev. This ain't me. Rev. Let's see how they pronounce it. Let me turn down the music for a second because this is important. Right? Let's hear what the Strongs can go. This is the word for controversy now. Yeah. The word for controversy. Reeve. You heard it? Rev. Okay. So the controversy, right? And we don't mean Rev as in revealer. We mean Rev as in reverend. This Rev is the controversy, the strife, the dispute, the quarrel, the dispute. It says the case of law, a contest, an adversary. Because unfortunately, whether we want to admit it or not, our pastors have not been well taught in terms of what the original scriptures are saying. I want to be clear. I'm not attacking any pastors. I'm just asking them to look at the book that they're feeding the people, the word. This says, hear the word. Because this is where the controversy is coming from. We don't want to go back and look at what the original words are saying. For the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land because there is no truth. This is the problem. There's no truth being taught, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. You want to understand why we're not getting the results? Remember we talked about mercy, chesed, goodness, kindness, faithful, or reproach, or shame. This word also is the number 5, which speaks about the 5 fingers of the hand, pointing to the scriptures, the yod or the yad, which talks about our mercy coming by way of following the scriptures. Amun. It says, there's no truth, there's no mercy, right? What's this word truth? You say emeth. Emeth comes from amun, firmness, faithfulness. See there? Truth, sureness, reliability. A what? True doctrine. There's no true doctrine. This is what the Holy Qubtic Church of the Black Messiah is striving to give our people, those who care, those who don't want to be just mere Christians, but true Christians. We want to give you a true doctrine that you can follow and gain the mercy and the knowledge that is necessary for us to succeed. There is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out and blood toucheth blood. This is why we're having the murders and the fights and the chaos. Because our houses of worship, our houses of the Most High Heavenly One, have become the houses of controversy, where there is no truth. Hosea 4:3 reads, therefore shall the land mourn. So then what's happening now? The land is mourning. Abal, abal, mourning, to lament, to mourn, to lament. Play the mourner. We're looking for salvation, but we're not understanding that our salvation comes by us getting back into the original scriptures. I'll talk about that in a second. Therefore, verse 3, Hosea 4:3, therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beast of the field, and with the fowls of the heaven, yea, the fishes, or the fish of the sea, also shall be taken away. We're destroying the environment. We're destroying that which is supposed to sustain us. Now everybody got to run back to farming because we got dependent on the beast. We got dependent on systems that cannot outlast nature. Verse 4, yet let no man strive nor reprove another, for thy people are as they that strive with the priests. Therefore shalt thou fall in the day, and the prophet also shall fall. Isn't this what's going on now? With thee in the night, and I will destroy thy mother. So their mother represents the churches that they were birthed out of, the Greco-Romanized, repackaged versions of true Christianity is going to be destroyed because they don't have any truth, they don't have any mercy, they don't have any knowledge that they're teaching. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. See, the pastors are destroying the people because they're not feeding them true knowledge. Damam, to cease, to cause to cease, to cut off. When you're not properly taught, you've been cut off. Cut off from what? Cut off from the mercy, cut off from the knowledge, cut off from the reality of the true scriptures. That's what's going on. That's why our pastors, unfortunately, we all gotta be called to the carpet. We all gotta examine what we're doing. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. Are you gonna reject what is being taught here today? Are you gonna actually pay attention to what we're saying, or are you gonna reject it? We're not asking you to believe it, We're saying check it out. We're saying do the research. Because the minute you start to imply knowledge, guess what? You got to do some research. The word knowledge is knowledge, perception. See, if you don't have the right knowledge, you cannot have the right perception. If you don't have the right knowledge, you cannot have the right discernment. You cannot have the right understanding. You cannot have the right wisdom. So how could we ever make the changes that we want or think we want when we can't even perceive the problem? We're not even perceiving the problem. All we're saying is the devil is a liar, sin is evil, and we need to get away from sin. But you don't know who the devil is. You don't know what sin is. Because sin is the devil. This sin, or Zuen, is seen in the book of Genesis 4:17. We're coming back to Hosea. Just to give an example of how our perception has been so terribly skewed as the leaders of the church. Even if we see it, we don't know how to teach it because it wasn't properly taught to begin with. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived. Verse 7 is what I want. Genesis 4:7. If thou doest well, this is when Cain is upset because his offering is not accepted, and he's being told, hey man, do it again. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. And if thou doest not well, It says, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. You're going to be out here being more devil than the devil. It says that the devil is going to lie at the door. The door, the pithak, opening a doorway of entrance. We're going to show you another doorway in a second, right? But this again can only be seen if we have the proper perception. You understand? If we don't have the proper knowledge, we cannot have the proper perception, we cannot have the proper discernment. Hence, we cannot become the church. We cannot become the Kanisa. It says, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire. So if you thinking sin is just something you do, no. There are those who are giving us examples of what to do. And that's called sin. Zuen, the ruler of the beast-minded. You understand? And that's why it's important that we know these things, because in knowing these things, we can then allow the correct consciousness to come through the door. Revelation 3:19. As many as I love, I rebuke. So don't take this passage or something. Don't take this as an attack. You know, I'm your brother. This is out of love, but I'm tired of the foolishness. And I think many of you are too. But are we big enough to put down our egos and do some studying? As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. Go back to where we started from. We keep wanting to go forward, but everybody who's ever gotten themselves together, when they dropped those bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, the Japanese went back to Shinto. When the Chinese were in the Opium War, they went back to understanding their relationship with their true religious identity, whether it was Buddhism or Confucianism or Taoism. They went back. Repent, go back. We say at oneism, go back, become one again with the cooked, with the center, with the heart seat. Which heart seat? Verse 20 says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. This is talking about the heart seat. You understand? This is talking about knowing and understanding that if you really mean the people well as a pastor, you'll know if you really, what you're teaching is the truth, it should resonate with truth. You can't just be resonating with somebody who you like. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. This door. So you could have sin lying at the door, or you could have Yahshua, the Christ consciousness, lying at the door. All right. This is just an example of how we need to look at the scriptures with the proper knowledge and understanding. The Revelation originally is the book of the Istanjil, the book of Revelation from an African perspective, and the book of Genesis originally is the Bereshith. All right. So the people are destroyed, back to Hosea 4:6, for a lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. Are you prepared to be rejected as a pastor? Ma'as, to reject, to despise, to refuse. You become garbage. You become that which is despised or rejected. This is what's going to happen if we don't, as pastors, learn the true knowledge of the Most High. Don't blame the drug dealer. Don't blame the pimp. Don't blame the sinners. It's our responsibility as pastors, including me. I'm not talking at you. I'm talking with you. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. See, we getting a lot of false accolades and false degrees and false titles, so we could look important amongst the people who don't mean us well. But do you want to be a priest of the Most High? That's what's key. Not the priest of your seminary, unless your seminary is teaching what the Most High is prescribed. I know that's the case for the Qubtic seminary. And I'm not saying that because, I went there. I'm saying I went there because I did the study of what was being taught before I went to seminary. And then I got, and still am learning more of it. Because in this day and time, it's necessary for us to separate the sheep from the goat. And that's amongst pastors too. You understand? Seeing thou hast forgotten the law. You want to follow Paul? You want to say to your congregation, you don't need the law, you don't need rituals, and Jesus died, and now he's the sacrifice, and now all we need to do is plead the blood of Jesus and blah, 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 blah. That's not what Jesus taught. That's not what Yahshua taught. That's what Paul taught. And because you forgot that, we're destroyed. That's what Jeremiah was saying. And that's why what? I will also forget thy children. You're going to cause your children to go into slavery. You're going to cause your children to literally go into a predicament whereby they won't control or understand how to control their own reality. You see? And so that being the case, we're going to go now into the Barashith. And for those who are watching, I don't have the stream up yet. The actual, let me see if I can get the comments. To connect to this. I'll figure that out. All right. So forgive me. I know you may have questions. I guess you can send me any questions on my Facebook page. Just inbox me. I'll see it pop up. All right. That being said, let's now go into the Barashith so that we can understand just an aspect, just an example of what the original books of the Bible can do for us as pastors, as well as those who are students of the scriptures. All right. We need to know the history of these scriptures if we're going to actually become the Kanisa. All right. So this is within the introduction of Papyrus 2, the ancient manuscript. All right, called the Barashith. The picture here is a picture of Papyrus 1, so don't get confused with that. But this is talking about where the Papyrus 2 is coming from. The papyrus, the Shabaka papyrus, these are things you'll be able to actually look up. They call it the Shabaka stone. This papyrus, the Shabaka papyrus, yes, of the Tamarians, of the ancient Africans. Again, we cannot pretend that all that we got to do is make one hop, skip, and jump, one leap of faith to Yahshua or Jesus, whatever name you want to call on, without going through our parents, without going through our tribe, without going through our culture, without going through the nation, without going through our rites and rituals. So this is an African book and was originally inscribed in and around 26,000 years ago on long papyrus scrolls during the last precession period on Tar Earth. Precession period is when the earth is wobbling, and if you can imagine a top, right? Let me just stop sharing the screen for a second. As the top is wobbling, okay, let me use this other hand. That one wobble takes 26,000 years. The one wobble takes 26,000 years. Okay, and that's called a precession. So this would have been written at the beginning of what we just described as a wobble. All right, 26,000 years ago. It says, the long 26,000 years ago on long papyrus scrolls during the last precession period on Tar Earth, and as such did through time and age become worn and worm-eaten, whereby need arose for it to be inscribed in stone by way of the instructions of the great tribal ruler and high priest Baba Shabaka, in order to preserve its sacred words and teachings. Now, this is important because it says that we as a people ultimately have a responsibility for preserving the scriptures. If we are true children of the Most High, then we need now to be responsible for bringing the true scriptures. All right? And I want to share something with you all in the book of Job, because we talked about the Shabaka stone being inscribed in stone. And some people say, well, that ain't in my Bible. I don't know where you're getting this from. But if we go to the book of Job, we'll see where that was done. This was a practice. This wasn't something that only we, the Holy Qubtic Church, is talking about. This is actually in your King James Version of the Bible. All right? Job 19, starting at verse 23. Oh, that my words were now written. Oh, that they were what? Printed in a book, like you're reading right now. That they were what? Graven with an iron pen and laid in the what? The rock forever. So this is not something we're making up. This is a reality. But are you concerned with what that rock actually represented? That's the key. That's what we need to understand. Let's go back now and finish reading so we can learn about this rock. All right, the Shabaka stone. All right. This is a picture of the Shabaka stone, and it hangs in the British Museum today, over here on the left. All right. So it goes on to say, all right, and this is the likeness of one called Shabaka. This is the tribal features that he had. This papyrus, the Shabaka papyrus, namely the portion that is the first 5 scrolls extracted out of it, known as the Tuore, became necessary to be revealed unto those of the 3 groups of 12 royal tribes of Ishmael, Israel, and Midiani, because in and around 8,020 years ago, with the graftation and mutation of the first branch, excuse me, of the Caucasian race called Halabian Flugelroy, many informational problems which previously didn't exist began to occur on Tar Earth. This was the Canaanite, the so-called white man, woman, and child, was interfering with our records. The informational problems of which we speak began with raids for the purpose of pillaging and raping, which were carried out by the hands of the first set of humanoid melanin recessive beings that would continually utilize a process known as cultural diffusion, both in and out of the land of Europa. Cultural diffusion means that you learn about Israeli and you learn about Israel, and you think that Israeli and Israel is the same thing. Let's give you another example. You know about Africans in South Africa, however, they have what's called Afrikaans. The African and the Afrikaan, even though it's a very slight variation in the syllable, they're 2 different people. But if I could make you think that the Afrikaan is the African, or the African is the Afrikaan, I can begin to manipulate knowledge, which means I can manipulate perception. I can manipulate discernment. And that's what's happening. So this is what they were doing from thousands of years ago. And they were launched from the Netherland areas controlled by 6 kings called Vikings, a place where called Southwest Eden or Sweden, the Caucasian Eden, with its abundance of white cloud-like snow. So they have their own Eden. You understand? And these Caucasians, these invaders, came down. I'll just pause for a second to show you a map. Because if we're going to properly grasp the realities of the scriptures, we have to know exactly where these places are and how they relate to what it is that's being taught. Okay? So let's just pause for a second. All right? And we're going to share the map so we can see exactly what is really being said here. All right? So I looked at a map that is showing us not only Sweden, all right, Southwest Eden. This is where these tribes that were raiding our lands were coming from. And they would come down through this area here between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, on into Anatolia, Turkey, and into this line here. You see this part called Israel. All right, this is where Israel is. I don't know how clear it is for you. And this area called the Levant. And they would use this as a staging ground to come into what is being called Egypt. That's why they use Egypt in their records, because they were invading, coming down. You had one group, 5 groups coming down in this, or 6 groups coming down in this area. You had another set of groups coming down over in what's called Mesopotamia. All right, but these were those who were interfering with our records. And by interfering with our records, I mean taking them and making it their own, not giving us any type of credit, as they still do today, as they still make it seem as if we don't have any culture, we don't have any type of story, we're savages, etc. But that's what was taking place. They created their own Eden, they created their own Bibles, they created their own heaven, they created their own hell, everything. Matter of fact, they made sure we stayed in hell, Hellenism. It goes on, and so it was that out of these pillaging campaigns, there arose much confusion amongst the members of humanity as to where the stories of the Tamarane Adama, the ancient African Adama, versus the Cadmonites of the Phoenician stock of Hindus, the Hindu Adam, versus those of the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, those in Mesopotamia, versus those of the Indus River Valley, those south, the Harappan civilization, versus those of the Amazon River in South America, versus those of the Mississippi River in North America, versus those who came to invade and establish a base at the River Ganges, where one Pharaoh Ganges ruled, which is the name, the river is named after him, versus those of Sino, born at the Yellow River, those who were taken over by a tribe called the Huns, all right, the Aryan Huns, who came in and made us think that the Chinese people are really originally yellow people. No, these were Nubian Melanites called the Ainu people, which we'll get into that another time, versus the Adam, son of Europa, the so-called Canaanite, the European. All of these are different Adam and Eve stories that as pastors we're not being made aware of in the various seminaries or however you're being taught. And we now need to know and understand. I don't care if you learn it from us or not, but go do some research, because you're feeding the people things that don't allow them to have a proper perspective. It goes on. Yet what they couldn't prevent was the fact that due to their works towards cultural diffusion, there did arise further conflicts, contradictions. What was the word for contradiction? Rev. Huh? Because we don't understand who and what God is. That's not a coincidence that the word contradiction is the word rev. The pastors in Jeremiah 23 are being talked about. This is where the conflict is coming from. And the confusion between the gods, goddesses, religious identities, cultures, beliefs, spiritual powers, spiritual teachings, civilizations, histories, and the likes amongst the genetic families or races of Tar Earth which exists even unto this latter day and time. We got to learn history. We got to learn religion from all of the aspects of the planet, because everybody has a religious teaching, including the African. So we can't just say we're saved and we don't even know our own perspective. We got to know history. We got to know geography. As our Basesh continuously says, if we are learning about names in the Bible, you read the word Ethiopia in the Bible, you don't want to know what Ethiopia has to do with the Bible in Genesis 2. No? You learn about Xerxes in Esther chapter 1, and you don't want to know who Xerxes is. You don't want to understand how the Persian Empire was affecting what you are writing or reading in the book of Esther. And how could you feed the people properly? How could we become the church and we don't have proper perspective? We don't have proper knowledge. More importantly, this question of who was Adam and Eve, we still don't know what that is. They showing you pictures of Adam and Eve, white man, white woman, they got a belly button. And if you was made from the earth and you didn't come from a womb, and they say Eve was made from Adam's rib, why does Adam and Eve have a belly button? Belly button means that there's an umbilical cord. Umbilical cord means there's a womb. A womb is what's inside of a woman. So can we stop playing the games and get back to reality? Huh? Who was Adam and Eve? And more so, its answers became further complicated. We don't want to address it. We just want to be saved. So that's why we're in a complicated, controversial position. We're destroyed for lack of knowledge, right? But things became even more complicated when the first libraries of Alexandria were destroyed by the Alexandrian-led Greek Orthodox Church. Now, why would these people, because we're going to list some churches now, who say that they stand between you and salvation. They stand between you and God. But they was destroying the actual knowledge that was necessary for us to be saved, for us to have wisdom, for us to have knowledge, for us to have law, order. So it was being destroyed by the Alexandrian-led Greek Orthodox Church, and it was burned down more than once. This was just one of the first times. Then further purposely confused. So this story is purposely confused again, destroyed and miswritten during the first Constantinian Roman Orthodox Catholic conclave called the First Nicene Council in 325 AD, which still holds precedent within the many churches today, because this is a creed that is said in many denominations today. Not only the Catholics say the Nicene Creed, and in the Nicene Creed, they talk about the respect for the Holy Catholic Church. So the Holy Catholic Church has influence over all of these churches, whether it's an Anglican church or the Methodist church or the Episcopalian church, Presbyterian church. Whether they say the creed or not, these churches came out of the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church was a repackaged version of the church cult of Caesar. And then further on, it was watered down. So this was watered down again after the Nicene Council, and fictionalized by the decree of the King James Anglican Orthodox Church, the most widely read version of the Bible on the planet, the King James Version. Then it went on down into Islam, Pale Arab Emirate infiltration, not true Islam, but the Pale Arab Emirate infiltration and amalgamation to formulate their Indo-Aryan influenced and Pale Arab Emirate controlled Quran, much of which is translated in Lahore, Pakistan, by way of the Hindi, Urdu language under the control of the Wahhabi-led Saudi royals. These were the Hindus that came down in through the Najd into what is called Aswad Saudi, or the Black Saudi Arabia, the place where the Black Arabs, the true tribe of Ishmael, was residing. And they took that over, and now they control the knowledge again, which destroys us as so-called Muslims today. Wherein much of these events were and yet continue to be purposely for the sake of confusion and promotion of racism, white supremacy, merged as if one and the same. That's what cultural diffusion does. It makes us think that this one book is giving everybody's perspective. And it can't be. It doesn't make sense. How could one book spiritually lead everybody, but then you go to different countries just going Google, you don't have to even get on a plane, and just look at the variation in culture and look how people live differently and how we all have different ways of ruling ourselves physically, culturally, as tribes. But then you believe when it comes to spirituality, we can just have one book. It don't make sense. Not to a thinking person, not to a true pastor. I'm just saying, not to a shepherd. Yet this was not the first time such events occurred. Instead, there existed one such situation prior to these, wherein an invasion from amongst the three sets of 12 invading dynasties, these same Aryans again, under a new name called Ishmaeli. Not Ishmaeli is not Ishmael. Israeli is not Israel. Mitanni is not Midiani. These are the European tribes that are being led by a Pope Joseph Apophis. Who is the Joseph? The Joseph is none other than Ptolemy Soter, one of the Diadochi, one of the generals of Alexander the Greek, who's really their Jacob. You understand? But they sent in three tribes: Jacob Har, Jacob Ban, Jacob El. They scoped out the three groups of 12 royal tribes in hopes of supplanting and capturing the sacred city of Hutwaret, or avarice, for the goal of identity theft, along with mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical control and domination. That's what we're up against. If you really serious about feeding your flock, pastors, you better get into the reality of what history from an African perspective is saying, because this is an African story, this is an African book. It goes on to say, this did occur during the time of the tribal leaders and tribal rulers of the original, those who from the Qubtic, the original three groups of 12 royal tribes, falsely called the 12th dynasty by some, who did all within their power, being led by Amun Hut the first, also known as Mesu, the African Jacob. Again, if we're serious about teaching people, we got to know that there's an African Jacob and there's a European Jacob, because they were culturally diffusing. They were taking our story, bleaching it, and giving it back to us as if it was the original. That's not the case, though. This Amun Hut the first, known as Mesu, all right, he was leading the way for our people towards the return, the repenting again, the return to the ways of our foreparents, simply a renaissance or a rebirth of atonism, which is taking place right now. Within 24th, this is called the 24th hour. This is called a moment in time when we can make contact in a very real and clear and concise way with the celestial heavens in order to bring this message forward today. The rebirth of atonism, wherein the revival of all atonist Christine ways. And so it was during that day and time that the clarity which the Shabaka papyrus provided would become necessary to once more be revealed unto the minds, hearts, eyes, ears, mouths, and souls of all members of humanity in varying degrees of genetic potency, by way of the portion of it which was taught by, revealed, and given through the hands of the Moseses. Baba Tahutimos I, Acts chapter 7, verse 22, says that Moses was learned in all, not some, but all of the ways of the Egyptians, as they say. But we know that word Egypt didn't exist, and it was talking about Tamore. And so I just want to take you to that verse for those people who may have never seen that verse. And we're going to go into the blue letter Bible and go to Acts 7 and 22, so you can understand it. Again, this is not just us saying this. What does it say? And Moses was learned in some of the ways, right? Moses was learned in a little bit of the ways, in a portion of a quarter. No, all of the wisdom of the Egyptians, of the Tamoraeans, and was mighty in words and deeds. All right. So how did he become so mighty in words and deeds? He became mighty in words and deeds because he got a proper understanding of the scriptures. He learned about the emerald tablets. of Tahuti, of Mikhail. Okay, again, ancient African teachings. All right, and this was taught by, revealed, and given through the hands of Moses, or the Moses, Baba Tahutimos the first, Tahuti Mos, Thutmose, one of the 12 tribal rulers, along with Baba Shubaka, who were assigned to protect Atonism during those genealogical generations. Each generation, we have a Baba who is assigned to protect Atonism. In this day and time, it is our Baba, Harohotep Ta, right? Our Bibi, Sharice Riddick Varma. Yes? Thereby, in and around 10,500 years ago, by our Tonist calendar, the great tribal ruler Baba Shubaka, in a logical effort to preserve the confirmable truths which they contain, did have his scribes inscribe in stone. That's what? Job 19. In order to preserve its sacred African theological teachings for countless generations. That's why we still can see it today, which were to come. And today, this great work, which has been inscribed in stone, is known as the Shabaka stone, a piece of which, not the entire thing, a piece of which is found disrespectfully hung on the walls of the British Museum. They have the Rosetta Stone encased with lights all around it, and they just throw the Shabaka stone up. But what is the Shabaka stone? Shabaka stone is the true African theology. They love to say we as Africans don't have religion, or that we didn't have theology. But everybody who came into Africa came in without a theology, and they left with one. So what caused them to gain a theology? Unless they met one there and was just trying to make sure you never knew where they was getting it from. The Shabaka stone is an African theology, or a theology of Hetkatar, known as the Memphite theology. You can look these things up. The teachings and information, which was eventually taught to, inscribed by, and put into the hands of the Moseses, Baba Tahutimos I, called Thutmose I, the African Moses, who was the keeper of the African Ark of the Covenant, held sacred within the great university, or University of the Giza complex. That was a university, not just some pyramids that people came to see. They didn't have tourism back then like we do today. That's how you know that we're not operating in true faith. Because if these wonders of the world, as they call it, the pyramids, are just a tourist attraction today, that means we don't know what it's for. Or we don't want people to know what it's for. There's a functional purpose for them. It was a university. It allowed for us to gain the knowledge, which allowed for us to gain the proper perception and discernment in order to rule ourselves. But again, we're destroyed for a lack of knowledge, and the pastors are being warned about this in Jeremiah 23. Furthermore, as the keeper of the African Ark of the Covenant, the Moseses, Baba Tahutimos I, was not only taught the African theology known as Atonism, which the Shabaka stone contained, but was given 5 sectional scrolls filled with instructions, laws, and commandments, falsely called books, which he, the Moses, Baba Tahutimos I, was to use towards reminding our people. That's all we're doing right now. Reminding our people, excuse me, who had been adversely influenced by the doctrines of various invaders. We as a people have been influenced by the doctrines of various invaders, and now must be reminded of who and what we are. That includes the pastors. We have to be reminded of who we were, our origins, our relationship to the Most High, Heavenly One. And most importantly, this portion of the Shabaka stone, which the Moseses, Baba Tahutimos I, was being given, was the best means by which we could implement the removal or eviction of the Hyksos. The Hyksos are mentioned immediately in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8. They talk about a king who does not know Joseph, not Ptolemy the first, not that Joseph, Yusuf. They didn't know of the 3 groups of 12 royal tribes. This was the Hyksos, but they had to be now evicted. And that's what the story of Exodus is really talking about. Now, I want to pause here for a second because the spirit is moving, the spirit of truth is moving, and we're gonna go back to Jeremiah 23, because they taught us that this story about these so-called Israelites being in Egypt was because they were enslaved, and the Africans and Pharaoh were bad people, and that's why you shouldn't be interested in your African heritage, because the Africans were enslaving the poor Israelites, and they always getting enslaved and put into a Holocaust and all of this stuff and blah blah blah. But let's see what Jeremiah 23 and 7 and beyond says. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Are y'all seeing this? This is not me. This is the scriptures now that you say you believe in, right? That story is no longer going to be seen as true. Because the reality now of what took place is no records of us having enslaved any Israelites in what you call Egypt today. There's no record of a group of Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years. They can find records of smaller groups of people who were there for even a lesser amount of time, but they can't find no real records of the Israelites wandering the desert. Now, I know you can find some archaeologists who find a little clay something and say, yeah, that was it, but we talking about 40 years. I mean, you don't have no houses, no city, nothing. You just walking around, no tents, nothing. Verse 8, Jeremiah 23. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel, of Ishmael, Israel, and Midiani out of the north country. It's talking about the Most High Heavenly One. It's talking about the Adonai. It's talking about the babies and the barbers that led us out of the countries and enslaved us. That is the real and living Messiah. The Christ consciousness. Because the black Messiah is not a person, it's a consciousness that's leading us, it says, out of the north country. What north country? What's the word here for country? Eretz, right? Land, earth, whole earth, country, territory, piece of ground. The what? The land of Canaan. All of these Canaanites that enslaved us, we're coming out of their lands. From the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, from the northeast to the southeast, to the southwest, to the northwest. We're coming out of hell. That's what this word is, Sheol in Hebrew. Hell. That's where our people are. So we were the ones who were enslaved, not no so-called children of Israel. That was cultural diffusion that they were using to usurp your identity, our identity theft. That is the Lord that liveth. Which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their what? Own land. How do you know this is true? Let's go to Genesis 15. We're going to go back into our own land. Yes? Genesis 15. You're talking about the children of Abraham, the Israelites, and Midianites, the African tribes, so 3 groups of 12 royal tribes. Genesis 15 and 13, and he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land. This is what it's talking about. That is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. That's what we just came out of. And still are part. They're trying to put us back in there. And also that nation whom they shall serve, the Canaanites, will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. So even though we went through the slavery, now we have education, now we have the ability to learn and do some things. But what are you going to do with it? Verse 15, and thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Go back home. Go back to your true religious identity. Go back to the motherland. Even if you don't live there, have a relationship with it. That thou should be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation, they shall come hither again. The iniquity of the Amorites. Amor is one of the sons of Canaan. Their iniquity is not full yet. That's what's coming now. You understand? So we got to come together and work together or fall under this iniquity again, this lawlessness. You understand? So we also want to look at Exodus. Because remember, we're talking about our own land. We're talking about the reality of our own land. But how are we going to gain access to our own land? How are we going to be able to live the life that we want to live? You go to the Ten Commandments, right? And it says in verse, let's make sure we can see, Exodus 20. And we want to go down to verse 12. Honor thy mother, or rather, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. See, living long also correlates with being in the right environment and having the right laws and having the right rituals. All right? If we're going to be a church or a kanisa that lives long, we got to do it in our true religious identity. Otherwise, we're just playing games. And you're going to learn that the people are not as gullible as you think they are. You understand? People want reality. They don't want this I'm saved, shut about 100 foolishness. All right? So the three sets of 12 invading tribes, known as Jebusite, Israeli, or Jews, spoken about in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, out of a portion of Tamaray, known as Hutwaret, the Avres, along with their warped beliefs, were kicked out by Tahutimus I and others, back through the area now known as the land of Canaan, brought back towards the Caucasus Mountains. We just showed you the map earlier. And so, my brothers and sisters, I'll stop there for now. Let us, as pastors, let us, as those who wish to be at one with the Most High Heavenly One and Neri, let's learn the scriptures. Let's learn and understand the true meaning of what it is that we as children of the Most High are supposed to live. We want to invite you tomorrow to sup with us at our Zoom lecture series with our Basesh Hotep Tar, as we're going to be talking about the children of who are these children of the Most High. We want to learn about the realities of these children of the Most High, and he's going to go in much deeper than I did tonight. I just wanted to have a word with some of the brethren of the cloth, as they say, as well as those who are the true children of the Most High, of the three groups of 12 royal tribes. We want to also ask that you donate to our ministry. You'll see our PayPal information at the bottom of this video whenever it does pop up on our page. And we want to say thank you in advance for those of you who will donate, as every little bit assists us in making it possible to bring you these messages. Again, my name is Pastor Dr. Cleveland W. Eneas III, also known as Ka-Hun, Anku Sarah. By the time as we have the next video, I'll have the stream up, so you'll be able to ask the questions that some of you may have. If you still have questions, just inbox me, and I'll address it in the next video. But until then, I do pray that we see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. on Zoom, and the information is on our websites around the world. We want to say Namastu, which means I bow to the divinity in you. And thank you again for being here with us during our scriptural study here on YouTube. Namastu.